How we doing? Huh? Oh yeah, thrilled. I love you guys. I wasn't happy to be here the other day. I was happy the other day than I am today being here. No, um, no, we're getting ready to transition. Today's really the last practice of training camp. Today, I view it. Uh, Tomorrow you got the mock game, and then getting into the transition game plan and getting into game week. So, uh, I think our guys are ready to get into it. All the players are ready to kind of transition to the next phase. And for us, we've touched on it a little bit here and there. Practice is what they need to do because it's very different. What our expectations are, what my game week is for how I see the program running, we expect them to act, perform, and improve every single week in game week. It's probably, I imagine, is going to be different than what they've done in the past, so we got to educate them on that transition as well. So, a lot of learning going on within the program. No questions. Huh? It's the same where it's been. It is what it is. It is what it is. We'll have it figured out here. There's so much going on. I know Brian and I have had some discussions. We have another big practice day today, and then Brian and I will really sit down and figure out who's gonna, right now, who's gonna give us the best opportunity to win games. Right now. It's about winning games this year.
I actually wasn't going to ask about quarterbacks, believe it or not. So, what are some of the key position battles other than that really need to be solved in this coming week? Even is something like punter. I know that's still very competitive.
That's open place kicker. Who you're doing with that. I like the performance that guys have. When you get into certain positions. It's about depth. You get in like a place kicker, a punter, quarterback. There's usually there's the one guy. Others, to me, it's not as much a position battle as much as depth building. Who's ready to go into games? More than who's the starter. I think you go in back in the day. Here's our 11 starter guys. They're going to play every snap of the entire game. We have all the different personnel groupings on offense, all the different personnel groupings on defense. I sit down with the defense. Where are we at? Do we have 30 guys that are ready to play? Do we have 27 that are ready to play? Do we have 22 that are ready to play? Who are they? Are they all in the right position? Same thing offensively. Do we have how many offensive linemen are ready to play, and who is ready to play? Do we have 3 tackles or 4 tackles? Do we have 3 guards or 4 guards, or do we have 5 guards and 2 tackles? Okay, well, how are we going to maneuver people then? If this guy goes down, where do the chess pieces move of who's ready to play? So I don't know that it's always position battle as much as it is depth building battle and who's ready to go into the game and who's ready for their opportunity.
You said that you set the bar extremely high for every day.
I do.
So realistically, though, did you accomplish, not being?
Yeah, it's hard to say everybody's reached my bar, but I am pleased with how our guys have bought in and what they've tried to do. I think in a lot of ways, I think they've tried to give their best. I think they have a lot more to give. But I think they're learning. It's not that they have more to give because they're not trying to give it. They have a lot more to give because they don't know how to go as hard as they can go just yet. And I think that is a learning curve for a lot of the guys. And that they, always the question I ask is the only person that can answer this question is the individual. Is that as hard as you can go? When you watch a film, is that as hard as you can go? And if you can tell yourself yes is the answer, then you're on the right path. You're practicing at the intensity you need to be successful. If you watch the film and inside of you, you look and say, I'm faster than that. Or, simple deal on a kickoff. There's 2 guys running next to each other. Well, whoever gets down the field then is faster, right? I mean, pretty obvious. You guys are running right next to each other. Well, if the 40 times and when we test and we do other things, or if you ask the two guys, no, I'm faster than him. Well, no, you're not. Because I didn't see. If you are, then you would have beat him down the field on kickoff. Well, I am. Well, then let's see it on the film. And I think that grasp, it is it's a tough deal for guys to figure out how hard they can go, and the effort they can give, and it's learning to do that on an every play basis, because they think they're going hard, but they're not always. But I think the attitude, if you get to, has the bar been reached, my standards are really, really high. But I do think the attitude of the guys trying to do what we're asking them to do has been fantastic.
Do you anticipate some of those battles, position battles, going into the game? Because you've talked about wanting to decide it before games.
Absolutely. I think a lot will be going into the game because, I've told guys, hey, there might be, you might be, everybody, right now, you might be at 20 reps in game one. How you perform in game one could be 25 in game two or 15 in game two. That how you go perform and the effort you play. If you're only playing 20 plays, those 20 plays at a certain level, hey, if you do really well, you might get 22 next week. If you don't do as well, you might get a couple less. And until you earn it back on the field by your performance in practice, to the right to get the chance at those reps, and then how you perform in those reps. So I think there's a lot of them that'll go into the game with the, not whether or not you're going to play, it's how much you're going to play. Those battles will continue from week to week.
You said game week prep will be pretty different than camp. What are some of the differences and what are the challenges for the guys?
It's completely different practice schedule. We have a different routine. I know how we run our game week. I have a way that we run it. You're not going against each other. Right now you got to come in and say, okay, the blitzes that we're going to have to see in pass protection are going to be different than they've been in camp. The offensive plays that they're going to be run at our defense are going to be different than they've run in camp. So our guys, you're looking at, today's practice 19 plus 15, right? 34. So if you go with spring ball and now, we've had 34 practices, our offense going against our defense. Well, starting Monday, we're going against a different offense and a different defense, with the scout teams. And, we did a little bit on scout teams the last couple of days of having a lot of different guys go and be a scout guys just so they can learn how that type of practice works. But it changes, you're going against a different offense or defense. So it's a whole different deal.
Coach, how much progress have the quarterbacks made, and what is your comfort level with them right now?
I think they've made a lot of progress. Understanding the offense, they've made a lot of progress within their personalities, I guess, learning how to deal with Brian and I on a daily basis of the, progress with, they're just coming out of some shells and, just having some personality and some fun with it and understanding what's important for the team and the leadership aspect of things. So I think they've come along really well that way. I think, one of the great things I talked to them, and they just their understanding is, hey, we've been coming in with a giant package, and now when we get into a game week, for that week, this is all we're going to carry. And I think I want to see how they respond to that is when we've gone from here to here for this week's plan, how they handle this week's plan. And, next week we're going to use this plan here, and how they transition to that will be interesting to see next week. Yeah, I'm comfortable with all our guys. That's who we got. You know what I mean? I hope I'm comfortable with them. I hope they're comfortable with me because that's all we got. So, right? We're all in this together as a team. And, and we get in that meeting room, we got each other. And we're going out there to try to be a great football team and leave a legacy. What our legacy? The 2018 legacy. We only have couple more months to stamp it, and that's it. That's done. That this team's legacy's done. So we have each other. So I'm comfortable with all the guys on our team, and I hope they're all comfortable with me, and because that's who we have as a team.
I'm going to take Thomas's role here and ask about injuries. You mentioned wrapping them up at the end of camp.
Yeah.
And giving updates on some of the guys, and
yeah.
I think there was some word about Jared Davis. Any of those? I'm sorry, David Reese, that guy.
Yeah. Well, it's
Jared
not the end of
Davis
camp
is
yet,
okay.
but I will say this with injuries. I saw, I was reading the media. You guys seem to know all the injuries, so I don't need to discuss them. It was in the media. Somebody reported it also. You guys know about it, so I'm good. So I don't need to talk about it then. You guys already have the info, I guess. I don't know. I saw it. Some people in this room have reported on injuries, so y'all must know, so I don't need to touch on it. You don't need my knowledge. You guys reported that a lot.
David Reese okay?
Yeah, all our guys are good.
Do you expect him to play in the opener, David?
We'll figure it out. We show up, and you'll see.
You had
I
also-
don't know. You guys have the info more than me. I was reading an article in depth about all our injuries, so y'all know. So I guess I don't need to talk about it. You already know.
That must have been a subscription site.
There you go. Must be.
You had mentioned also the idea that you want to have a quarterback named, or at least know
Mm-hmm.
who it is going into game week. Do you have an idea who that would be at this point? Or, like, do you have like a good idea?
I have
or
a feeling. I just want to see. Brian and I are going to look at it and really discuss every part of it. And see. There are a lot of little factors going into it, but that's not something I'm not. That's something that you guys. I'm not going to hide that. Done that. That's not like there's a secret that we're holding out on with everything. That's we're wrapping up training camp. School started yesterday, so we had a little bit of time to kind of get caught up and have a little bit of, while they're in school, there's a little bit extra time for some coaches meetings, for us to evaluate some different things and who's going to put us in the best. Who gives us as a team, with where everybody's at right now, the best opportunity to win games? And so, we'll go into the game week knowing who our starter is going to be for the first game. That's not going to be a game time decision deal. Unless unless I don't know. Yeah, I don't have to tell. Then you already know. You already know. That's not. I'm good with that. I don't know who it is yet because we haven't figured it out yet. But as soon as if it does leak out, it leaks out. You know what I mean? That stuff that gets. I don't know. If we name a starter, they might run out on Twitter and be like, "Oh, I'm the starter." Yeah, okay. As long as they might be making a video. They might make like the release video, right?
What drew you to Todd Grantham?
What drew me to Todd? It was really weird in this way. Is one, I had an opportunity. I was going to look to hire a defensive coordinator. We have the same agent. And they called and said, "Hey, Todd would really be interested in talking to you." I said, "Listen, if you need me to call to get Todd a raise at the job he's at or something like that, one of those type of deals." He said, "No," because I thought he's a really, really, statistically looking, he's a really good defensive coordinator. Top-notch guy without knowing much about him personality-wise. But I knew he was a really good defense coordinator. The proof, you look at his career and what he's been able to do. So I said, okay. Then I thought, well, no. And I got a call, said, no, he really is interested in work. If he really would be interested in that opportunity to be with you. And I said, okay. Then I think if you guys, that some of the Todd I knew from different things in the past, he's a fiery guy. And I'm like, okay, I'd love to meet with him, but I don't know that our personalities will gel perfectly for the staff, if that way. Because I can be a fiery guy sometimes too. And you know what? We sat down and met and really didn't talk much football. Schematics, because that wasn't something I was concerned about. Get up and show me your favorite blitz and this and that for the staff, because I knew that part there was not going to be an issue. It was a lot about our personalities mixing. When I got to know him and realized, that they would, and I knew what a great coach he was. It was, a pretty good deal. And then, a lot of times, one of the harder things when you hire somebody, you still don't always know until you're working together what you get. Then once we started working together, I realized, wow, I mean, I got a guy that is a big time coach. With in taking care of the defense, both schematically, motivationally, technically, in every aspect of the is a big time coach, and it's a great fit within our staff of how we do things. His personality really fits to what our program is, and the mentality I have with the program, and so I thought that it was a really good gel and a mix that way of us working together, and I would hope he says the same thing, that it is. I mean, it's a great mix on how we do things together.
Do you remember the 2 times you faced him at Mississippi State when he was at Georgia? I guess you guys split games.
Yeah, we split.
Did that leave an impression on you too? That I was wondering if that made an impression on you. So when he kind of came up, it was like, oh yeah, I remember. Because I guess they got the second time they faced you, they kind of shut you down.
They
Well.
did better the second time. We made some mistakes in that game.
Okay.
Really big kicking mistakes. It was on the road.
I just
They had a
looked at
3 and out to start the game. We had a drop pass, and then we shanked a punt, and they scored, and the place got going, and we turned it over the next play. No, but it was.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I just read the score, so I didn't
Remember
read
the first game?
details.
No, I just think overall, his reputation of defenses. And to me, it's not just that game; it's the consistency of what he's done defensively. I do remember the first game because he was just coming from the NFL. So I had to do like a bunch of unbalanced formations in the boundary because their ball's always in the middle of the field in the NFL to try to mess with them that way, and I think we did.
You guys won that 24-12, I think.
Yeah. That was a big win. It was one of my bigger wins. I don't know. Might not be here today without that win. If you look back at where we were, where the program was, and that kicked off I think a 7-game win streak. For us. But no, I think I haven't faced him a little bit, but I think more because that had been a ways before I hired him. Or it was more, if you go back with guys I hired, like I faced Manny Diaz and then hired him right after the season. Immediately. I mean, obviously, I probably wouldn't have been in the position to hire Todd Grantham at that point. Faced Manny when he was at Middle Tennessee State, and we faced him and had an opportunity after the season and hired him. But I think Todd's had been kind of so far back. It was more just overall. I love the consistency of performance of every defense that he's coached. That was really important to me.
In meeting him, what was maybe a personality or his personality like, something that you thought or something that you learned about him in that first meeting?
Well, I mean, because, I'm the only one I'd ever see is this guy on the sideline, like, and then you sit down and talk, and you start talking about football and philosophy of the program, not like all the X's and O's, what his beliefs are, how he coaches his players, his beliefs in technical, different things that they do in practice, ideas. And it wasn't a guy that maybe as brash as he maybe had come off on the sidelines. If you do a Todd Grantham YouTube highlight, sideline YouTube highlight, is not the person that you deal with on a daily basis. And so I think that was the biggest thing for me when we were talking. I'm like, wow, we're very aligned in a lot of different ways, and my feeling would be to work really well together.
Hey, Coach. With Malik Davis close or right back at 100% now, do you plan on keeping an eye on him during the first game against Charleston Southern, or do you plan on letting him go full out?
No, I'm going to let him go. I think the big test, was in the scrimmage. When we had the scrimmage and we let him go to see his confidence level. I mean, that's always, anytime you're coming off a significant injury, especially as a running back, a more skilled athlete. I shouldn't even just say running back. Anybody that's a skilled athlete, you see the confidence of them being back out there in the field, the confidence in getting tackled, of making a live cut and a live play. And so I think having gotten through all of that, I think that was the confidence building deal for him. So we're going to let him play.
And you awarded Nick and Ray J those scholarships this week, and when you did that, you mentioned how they contributed on special teams. Two-part question: is those contributions kind of the biggest thing that they did to earn that? And secondly, did you say that in front of the team just as another way to drive home how much you value that?
Yes, and yes. I mean, it is. Special teams are critical. I mean, our punt team, to me, if you come to our meals, the punt team eats first. If you're starting punt, you eat first. Punt team, you're starting punt, you get special privileges on the team. So they're both starting on the punt team, and so I mean that makes them the elite of the elite on the team, and they're best of the best if you're going to be on the punt team, and that's a mindset our team. But that's a mindset I believe in. I mean, I ask coaches all the time. I say, hey, if I don't think this guy's good enough to start on special teams, and you're going to start him on offense or defense, what are you seeing? I mean, you must think you got a pretty good contract or something right there. You're going to put that guy on the field if I don't think he's good enough to play on special teams. But just the mindset of the coaching staff, the mindset of the program is we want to be a great special teams team. I mean, if you look at our plan to win, what it takes, winning special teams is a huge aspect of it.
And offense and defense is something you've been asked a lot about, but with special teams, since the day you came through the door, it's something you've been emphasizing to the players. How do you feel like they've taken to it now that you're so close to the season?
I think they're getting there. I think that's the one thing that's probably the hardest thing to get implemented in, because a lot of guys, if you think about this, a lot of guys are learning so many different aspects and so many different things. And it's something that you do got to prove a point and hammer home every day, because you got a guy that's a linebacker that's trying to learn how to be a linebacker in our defense. And they're thinking about being a linebacker because they were recruited as a linebacker. I guess if you look at the roster, it says linebacker. It doesn't say left guard on punt. But the left guard on punt is more important than the linebacker position for us to win games. If we dominate, I mean, I share this with the team all the time. If we dominate the special teams part of the game, then we have to either have a great day on offense or a great day on defense. Don't even have to have both. Because if we dominate special teams, we've run 1/3 of the game. You have a great day on special teams, a great day on offense, you win. Great day on special teams and a great day on defense, you win. Because that's going to flip it the other way for you. And so I think that is such a huge part of the team understanding what is important to win. As the biggest thing I have to get around, and keep hammering home in the team is I want to win. I mean, I'm good 3-0. I'm good 51-50. I mean, I'm singing the fight song in the locker room both occasions, right? Now there'll be some people happier with 51-50, and some people happier with 3-0 on the team maybe, or their personal performance and how they played. But as a team, we won, and as a team, we're all going to sing the fight song. As a team, we did what we needed to do. And when we grasp that complete understanding of everything within the program, we're going to be a very successful program.
How's it going, Coach? Despite only being 27 years old, Coach Robinson has a ton of SEC experience playing and as a graduate assistant. What has he brought to this team, coaching the linebackers and on the recruiting trail?
Well, I think one thing, I think he's done a great job for me, and my concerns in hiring, and I went to Todd and I said, hey, we're the 10th assistant. We're going to hire a 10th assistant, and it's going to be a defensive coach. And he said, that's the guy I want. And so, I think it also shows the relationship Todd and I have and the trust, that I have. I said, great. I said, that's the guy you want. So I said, and I know Christian's worked for me, but I want to sit down and meet with him, and talk to him then about my standards and expectations. And one thing I think you see with Christian too, because to me, despite being young, I mean, he's a very mature guy in a lot of ways. And, and so I look at a guy in similar ways. I was 32 years old, and I was the offensive coordinator here at the University of Florida. I was a pretty young guy in that position. But I was with a guy that trusted me and a guy that would help mentor me and say, hey, here's some things, the decisions you need to do along the way, and here's some things that you've done well and poorly. And I want to try to help Christian the same way, and I think he has a maturity about him that makes him a good coach. I think having played in the defense helps him to coach it. having played in the league. When he said, hey, looks at the guys and said, I've made those plays. I've done it. This is, they can relate to him well. And being a younger guy, it certainly doesn't hurt with recruiting. Recruiting what tries to keep you young at heart. You know what I mean? When you're sitting there and your life revolves on a daily basis around 18 to 22-year-olds and you're recruiting kids younger than that, keeps you feeling young. I don't feel my age, I don't think. Age is just really a number, but it can be an attitude. But our life is spent around young people and what young people are doing, so it's always good to kind of know where they're at and what they're thinking. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Hold on, no, hold on, let me change that. Todd is an awesome coach. I know the fight song. I know the fight song, but the alma mater though that you put the words up on the screen. So I know it, but I might need some more. I couldn't go a cappella right now for you.
How we doing? All right. Fire away.
So just some camp questions first.
Sure.
Anybody surprise you, stand out that maybe had a great camp that's kind of on your radar that might not have been as much?
I don't know. I would say anyone individually surprised me. I think that I've seen guys individually get better. Ja'Kai Polite, for example, is a guy that's flashed for me. Even the corners, between CJ and Marco, really have bought in and tried to do the things the way we want and have worked to improve their skill set. I would say as a group, I've been pleased with the way we've moved forward during camp that way.
Yeah, I actually was going to ask you about Polite. It sounds like he's had a really strong camp.
Yeah, Polite's done a good job. He's got some ability. He's got some edge rush to him. He's understanding the value of, going hard all the time and playing that way. And certainly look forward to getting him on the field next Saturday and watching him play.
Will on the right.
Yeah, Will.
Hey, Todd. We saw Clement play a little bit safety, and Dan talked about the depth issue there.
Yep.
Who's kind of been the most consistent at those two safety spots?
When you look at our safeties, first of all, Steiner, young guy that I've seen really progress, has shown the ability to tackle in space and continues to get better. Jawan Taylor's a guy that's played both spots. Brad Stewart has played both spots for us. You're always looking at your guys as a team, offensively and defensively, and say, hey, how could this guy help our team? So Clement's obviously a guy that we put over there just to see what his skill set is, see how he can handle it. Because, you're always looking to try to develop that depth because you never know on any given week who's going to be available. So I would say that the guys that I talked about there have really kind of shown up and done the things we've asked them to do.
Is there a concern with the injuries in the secondary specifically?
Not really. Injuries are part of the game, and it's really next man up attitude. So, as guys go down, it creates, I've always been a believer that injury creates depth because what it does is it creates opportunity for guys to play and earn reps. And as they get those reps and develop, when other guys come back and are healthy, all of a sudden you're now deeper. Because sometimes as a coach, you may not play a guy because of these other players and the amount of time that they've played and their production, that kind of thing. But if a guy goes down and you're forced to play someone, it creates opportunity for that player. It allows them to get reps. It gives you a good evaluation of them. Then all of a sudden when somebody comes back, now you have a guy that's, gotten a few more reps than maybe he would have. So I've always looked at it as injury can help you create depth in your defense or your team. And, it's really a next man up attitude.
And then have you seen what you've needed to see from Iverson to say that if we needed to, he could play safety or could play
Yeah, I think
secondary?
that with him, we'll continue to work and develop him and just see how he progresses throughout the rest of the fall camp and early part of the season and, just see what he can do. And that's how we'll handle that with him.
Thomas.
We kind of know what David Reese can do at linebacker. Who are some of the other guys that you've been pleased with?
Yeah, I
in terms of
mean,
progression?
first of all, Beauchamp is a guy that's really explosive, really fast, can be disruptive in his skill set. Rashad Jackson is a very conscientious guy that has shown the ability to play either spot. You know, Collins, a guy that has really kind of been playing a little bit more of the money position for us as of late. Solid. You know, James Houston is a guy that's really kind of kept fighting and getting there, and been pleased with his progress. You know, Ventrell Miller's a guy that is a young player that will flash, and I think that as he continues to develop, he'll be a solid player for us. So, you know, we're really young there in that area, and all of those guys have flashed at times. It's just a matter of us developing the consistency we need to be the kind of defense we want to be.
A little bit of a personal note, but moving is part of coaching. Does it get harder when your kids get a little bit older?
Absolutely. I think that, you know, when your kids are young, it's really easy. But once they get into the high school years, it becomes tough on them. You know, middle school, high school age. Fortunately, I got a dynamic wife and 2 kids that have adapted and been able to handle that. But it's certainly something that can take a toll on your family.
Do you have to sell them on moving every couple years or every year or whatever?
Not really. I mean, we've always looked at it, my wife and I, as, you know, our life is a journey. And the thing about it is through our journey, you've met good people everywhere. You know, some people don't get that exposure. So I think that in some ways it helps you become a more well-rounded person because you get to live in different parts of the country, meet different people. But at the end of the day, there's good people everywhere. And you end up with a lot of friends. So, you know, I've always tried to take the positive approach with it.
Speaking of being well-rounded, Coach English, in his time off between coaching gigs, said that he learned to perfect smoking meat. Is there anything like that that you've been able to master or work on?
I like to fish, okay? I don't know if I've ever really perfected it yet or not, but I certainly like to fish and do that kind of, because, you know, you have to make a choice, fish or golf. And as a coach, you really can't do both because you don't have enough time. And, you know, a bad day fishing is better than a bad day on the golf course.
Those are the only 2 options, though, fishing.
Those are probably the only 2 options as far as crafting goes. I'm not the grill master that Coach English is.
Has he gotten anyone else on the defensive staff involved in that?
Not to my knowledge. Now, they all like to eat. You know, all of those guys like to eat it when he cooks it, but not really grilling it.
Dan said he's going to kind of shape the system to the personnel. Obviously, I'm sure you're doing that too. But how close to the system you kind of envisioned are you going to be able to play this year?
Yeah, we'll play our system. I mean, you know, every year you're going to change to the players you have, and you're going to always try to enhance the talents of the players that you have and their skill sets. And then from a liability standpoint, or maybe things that you maybe can't do, you work towards things that they can do. That's going to be every year. You're always evolving relative to your personnel. So we'll be fully prepared for anybody that we play this year schematically, that it won't be because, hey, we're new. You know, there won't be any excuses because we're new. We'll be prepared. We'll be ready, and we just got to go play.
What's the most telling defensive statistic to you, besides maybe scoring defense, which seems kind of the obvious one? What's the kind of behind-the-scenes stat that maybe people take for granted that you really look at a lot?
Yeah, well, first of all, points allowed is the most important stat. I do think turnovers allows you to win ball games. If you look, you know, we always have a thing on defense that we want to be +1. And the reason I always say +1 is because at the end of the day, if they get 1, we really got to get 2. So you have to have that mindset that you, for example, if we do turn the ball over, you got to go put the fire out. And if they get 1, we got to find a way to get 2, because when you have 2 teams that are evenly matched, if you can have a +1 turnover ratio, your chances of winning are probably 90% greater. And when you start getting into the SEC and those kind of games, it's really the closest thing to NFL there is. And when you have that kind of competition, the turnover margin is something that can swing it one way or another. Now, that doesn't mean that, being hard to run against isn't important. There's a lot of things that are important. You got to have ways to stop the run, to not let teams be on track. You can't give up explosive plays. I mean, all of those things are important. But if at the end of the day, if your turnover margin, if you're +1, you have a great chance to win that game.
A lot of different teams like to do special things for their players to try and get turnovers. Like Miami had the turnover chain. Is there anything like that you do to harp on to?
Yeah, I mean, we have this thing that we're kind of going about, and it's not necessarily always turnovers, but we always talk to our guys about playing to our identity, which is fast, physical, and aggressive, and there's a certain standard, and a part of that standard is turnover. So, during the course of a meeting, because, these days get long, and meetings can get kind of long for guys, so we'll be watching a play, and all of a sudden this code orange thing will come up, and we'll play a little music and get a code orange play, which is a turnover, and we'll kind of celebrate the turnover during the meeting. So kind of gets guys back into it and everything like that. So we try to do that, not just on game day, but, during practice as well, because really that's where you create your habits. If you can emphasize it in practice, it'll generally carry over to the game.
And Trey Dean, freshman, how has he looked this camp, and how much do you expect?
Well, Trey's going to play. Trey will be in a rotation. He's really competitive. He's got good size. He's got all the skill sets you want in the corner. He's really worked to improve the fundamentals, understanding the leverages and why they're important. But he's probably one of the most competitive guys I've ever been around, and I think that's allowed him to excel early, and we're certainly going to play him this year and get him in a rotation to help us.
Anything else, guys?
Sure.
Coach, last year in Mississippi State, what was it about that group do you feel like that you would attribute to how they were able to make such a turnaround that they did under your direction? And does this group have some of those same qualities to make a similar jump?
Yeah, I think those guys played hard. I mean, when you look at it, they played pretty relentless. They played pretty tough. They had the physical toughness needed to play. We had talent, but to go from whatever it was, 110 to 10, I mean, it was really, first of all, it was a belief thing, because belief is a powerful tool. But then it was just that relentless effort. That was a standard. And we really, truly believe play to your identity, put on tape what you want to be. And that's what we're really selling right now to our guys. And you'll see flashes of it, the identity that we want. I think that we just got to continue to work to develop the habits needed to be that kind of team. And habits are, I mean, we all have habits. We're all creatures of habits. And I think the biggest thing is trying to educate guys on what is playing hard, what is running to the ball, what it means to play physical, what it means to, accelerate to the ball. I mean, all those things are educational things, because sometimes a guy may think he's running to the ball, but when you watch it on tape, it's really not where we need it to be. So by educating them, then I think you see improvement the next time. So really it's just a process of trying to educate guys to understand that this is the standard we want. These are the things that are important as far as effort, physicality, doing those kind of things. And you got to develop those habits. I mean, there's no magic dust to developing a top defense. I mean, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of preparation, but there's a certain amount of relentless effort that's involved. And I would say that those guys last year really had that relentless effort.
You said belief was a big thing too, being that they were 110th. Did you kind of have to get them to believe that they could be an elite defense? But with this group,
absolutely.
I think this group thinks that they are elite.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, not to compare, but I mean, if you're coming off of a bad year, there can be some confidence issues. You know what I'm saying? So you have to make plays. So from that standpoint, I think the biggest thing is, hey, celebrate your playmakers. I mean, we do it in our meetings. I mean, we'll show guys making plays, your playmakers. But we'll also show the inconsistencies. And the inconsistencies is not necessarily to show a guy out. It's more to educate them on, if you were to improve this leverage or this technique or do this, it can change the whole complexion of that play, and the importance of all 11 guys doing it. Because, on defense, if you have one guy out of his gap or one guy not running hard, you can create a seam. And seams is when explosive plays come, and that's the way you give up points, and that's the way you lose games. So it really all goes hand in hand. And I've been really proud of the way our guys have bought in to what we're doing, and they've had to work to change some habits. And I think that we're moving in the right direction. We're not there yet, but we'll continue to work that and do the things we got to do to be there.
How are Elijah and TJ Slayton coming along as far as playing in the middle there? And I know they've both kind of lost weight and tried to get in better shape. How have you seen them progress from the spring to now?
Yeah, they've made strides. If you were to say day one of spring to now, they're really completely different players. They've worked to really perfect their craft, and to be an all around pro, an all around player. You've got to do the things you just talked about. Not only is it on the field, but you got to do it with your nutrition. You got to do it in the weight room. You're not going to feel great every day, so you got to learn to push yourself through. And the biggest thing is when you're trying to develop that, there's always going to be that barrier. Everybody has a breaking point. And what you have to do is you have to push yourself through that barrier to take that next step. And I think those guys have done a good job of working to make that incline to be the kind of players that they want to be and we want them to be.
They're both kind of young. Is it you or is it the weight staff that kind of impresses on them doing that stuff off the field? Because young players maybe don't get that right away.
Well, I think that's where you got to be on the same page as a program. It's not just the weight staff. It's not just us. It's the program itself. And that's how you develop players is through your program, and they understand we're all on the same page with what you've got to do to be a better player.
Back to the whole notion of the nomadic lifestyle of a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, when do you know the time's right? I mean, is this a financial consideration or is there more to it? I mean, when the time's right to make a move?
To make a move?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of answers with that. Is one, how does that create opportunity? Maybe it's what part of, it's going to be different for everybody. It could be what area of the country you want to live in, what conference you want to coach in. Could be, hey, what kind of work environment you want to have, what kind of person you want to be around. It could be all of those things. And, to me, we spend a lot of time as coaches. So really it does become a family decision because it does impact your family. But you really got to look at it from a standpoint of what's the best for your family and your future. And if you feel like it's the right move, don't look back, make a decision, take it and go. So, I think that's going to be individually based upon the person, and just kind of go with that. I don't know if there's ever a right or wrong answer to that question, meaning like, hey, if you feel like it's the right thing to do, then go ahead and go do it. So it's going to be different factors all the time.
And what's the one thing with Dan, if you had to single out, that's allowed you guys to mesh so quickly?
Generally speaking, he's an offensive coach. He calls the plays, but he really has a defensive mentality, both in recruiting and the way he calls the game and the way he runs the game. And, being in that work environment to be able to mesh like that is really, really fun because it challenges us with the things that he does schematically. He also allows us to do our thing to try to improve our defense with the things that we need to do. And it's just really a working relationship. But I think the biggest thing with him is he has the big picture look. The thing you got to be careful of sometimes when you're, say, the head coach from an offensive perspective, that you look at the offensive side and you forget about the defense. The biggest thing he does is he looks at it from the overall, as a CEO of the entire organization. And he does have a defensive mindset on how you need to do things to be good and win a championship.
You guys good? Cassidy, last one. You just got it.
I don't think we've spoken to you since the guys mentioned the juice guy and how you were that.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What all things into it?
Yeah, Cam can be a grind. You're talking, continual days of football, and you just want to reward guys that create juice and energy in practice. So before every meeting, the next day, we're going to give out a juice award, and it'll be the guy that brought the most energy and juice to the field. And the guys want to win that award now, so now it's becoming a little bit contagious and things like that. So I think anything you can do to to reward guys in a positive manner, and recognize their hard work. I think those things are good. And, you know, just like talking about the turnovers with our Code Orange and things like that, and playing to our standard with plays. I mean, I think anytime you can, you know, you're going to educate guys on the things that maybe they need to correct, but you can also show the things, hey, this is the way to do it. And this is the kind of energy we need. And, you know, if you get guys that have belief and guys that will play with energy, I mean, you can go pretty far. You know what? I'm not sure about winning it the most. We've kind of spread it out, you know. Chauncey's been there quite a couple times. Polite's been there a couple times. So, but I couldn't really tell you exactly. All right. Take care.
Saltwater or freshwater?
Freshwater. But